up this morning to this whole fiasco between you and Carl Banks. I mean, you get paid to give an opinion, and you gave a strong opinion on what you think, and you've done that. In many cases, not just basketball. It's been your own team, the Minnesota Vikings, that you root for. It's been the Mets that you root for, and you have every right to give your opinion and give it the way that you want to give it. I support you 100% with your ability to do that. And Carl can say he knows the Towns family. That's fine. That's not what you're talking about. You're not talking about him as a person. You're talking about him as the centerpiece of the New York Knicks basketball team and whether or not they can get over the hump and get to the next level. And you were very strong in your take yesterday. I'd never fight you when you go those ways, just simply because I know how passionate you are about the sport, how passionate you are about your New York Knicks, especially when they got so close and their two best players basically didn't show up and didn't play well in Game 6.
Yeah, I mean, I know that things get twisted out there, and it happens to us, too, where we'll see something and maybe somebody meant something else and we don't have the full context of it. But I was really surprised that so many people digested this in the way that they did yesterday, where they thought that I was calling him a loser as a person. And if you listen to exactly what I said, I'm talking strictly basketball. I say losing player. Yes, I say loser. I don't say anything about his family, anything about the man that he is, anything about his personal life at all. Just talking about in these situations, if you want to win a championship, I don't think that he has it, which is something that I have said for weeks now about him. He's just missing something. So it was that word that got people fired up, assuming that I was talking about him as an individual, which is not the case.
I mean, Carl Banks jumped to that conclusion.
Right, which is funny because I wasn't making it personal about Karl Anthony Towns. He assumed I did, but then he made it personal about me, which, like, the same way that Carl Banks feels about us, meaning talk show hosts who didn't play, not you, but guys like me and BT and Sal and Evan, like how you guys can't evaluate sports because you didn't play, is the way I feel about Carl Banks when he starts chiming in on stuff like this. Like, leave this stuff up to us. Just like the way you don't respect our opinions on sports, I don't respect your opinions on media because he's not very good at it. He doesn't understand. His comprehension was terrible yesterday. And he spent years on this radio station putting people to sleep. So, his opinion on this was so far off. One, he was reacting to something I didn't say. And then two, he turned it into a completely different conversation. So, whatever. He likes to get himself in the mix. People were going crazy about it. And another thing that is just, it's funny to me that it's like a chess checkers situation here. It's like people would be going crazy. Oh, WFAN, you guys are unbelievable. You say all this crap. You guys stink, this and that. Just as you said, this is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to give opinions that you react to. Here's when we stink, when no one's talking about us, when no one's paying attention to us, when the things that come out of my mouth don't end up in the newspaper. That's when WFAN stinks. So everybody who thinks that this was a WFAN's gone down the drain moment, no. This is WFAN is still here. You still care. You still pay attention, and you pay attention more than you want to. So go screw.
And you paid more attention now than ever before.
Exactly.
That's the other thing, too. So, look. It's I find it very interesting because, both of us have been in the crosshairs at times about different things that we have said about different situations that have come across our desk. And quite frankly, in downloading what happened to the Knicks, I read everything that, you said. I heard everything that you said. I knew that it was going to be pointed, and I knew that it was going to be strong, and I knew that people were going to react to it. And, of course, you read the articles that are written about these players. Hell, I had articles written about me. There were articles written about Carl Banks. He knows. I mean, we know what this is like. We know from the other side, from the player side, what the expectations are. But, it's interesting. I read articles about how Karl Anthony Towns shouldn't be ridiculed the way that he is because he was one of the best players that the Knicks had all year. But then in that article, it says he's slow of foot, he can't jump. And he falls to the ground too many times, and he takes too many bad shots. But he's still the best player they have. I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, I've said on this radio station about him in particular that he's the best offensive big man they've had since Patrick Ewing was here. And he's actually probably even more a better offensive player than Ewing was. It's just that Ewing was a total player. He was a defensive player. He was a strong player. He was a physical player. He was a rim protector. He could shoot. He could do everything. He was a full-in player. Where I think Karl Anthony Towns is more like an 85% player, where he is offensively as good as any big man in the league. I think he's right there. He had a terrible Game 6. His shot selection was awful. Yes, he could not gain a foothold down in the paint in Game 6 at all for whatever reason. And he had a very poor game. And this is the reason he was brought here was to beat a team like the Pacers, to get to the next level. Now they've gotten to the next level. I will give them that much. The question now is, what does Leon Rose do moving forward? And I'm sure the guys after us yesterday, both in the afternoon and the midday, and also the guys at night, all were talking about it. Everybody has their ideas as to what needs to be done here. But they're not that far off, to be honest with you. And I kind of like the team. They're just going to have to add more pieces that Tom Thibodeau will consider playing more often than he did this year. I think one of the reasons he played these guys so much this year was to get them used to each other. Because I don't think we realize just how hard it is to bring in new guys and then start playing together. And the more you play together, the more it becomes a natural instinct that you're playing with each other and you know where each other's going. I think that's one of the reasons why he played his starting five so much this year.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And as far as Towns, I mean, I know that Knick fans want to, especially the younger Knick fan who didn't see the guys that we have talked about and didn't really watch Patrick Ewing day in and day out, want to blindly defend their guys because of the special season. I also said this season was a success to me. It was. The conversation is going forward. Do they have what it takes to win a championship? Is what this is all about, because there's been a drought for over 50 years. But if you watch these games and you're not blindly defending your players, and you know that the way this team is built with a $50 million big man who has to be great, who has to be MVP-like for them to win a championship, and he's not. And he's playing like that, and he's taking dumb fouls, and you got these NBA Hall of Famers that are chastising him for it in a post-game interview after a win, no less, and he's agreeing with them. And the sloppiness and the disappearing and the complaining and all of those things has to change. That is when I say the core of him is a loser, that's what I'm talking about. A losing players. Every time he goes to the basket, he's going to complain. Every single time that he gets any contact, he's going to complain. Anytime he gets called for a sloppy foul, he's going to complain. I mean, it's just it's not a winning mentality.
And he will not commit to defense.
No, and he never has, and he never will. And that's okay if you're dominating the way that he did in Game 3. If he's dominating like that the way he did in Game 3, then fine, don't play defense. But when you're doing everything else horribly and you're not playing any defense, then it's a problem.
Do you remember? I think it was in the series against the Celtics where Bridges and he had words on the sideline that had to be about defense. It had to be.
Yeah.
We never figured out exactly what it was, but it looked like there was a little bit of tension between the two players. It was fine. There's tension between a lot of players during games because the intensity is ratcheted up, especially when it's the playoffs. So those things happen, and you kind of get through those things. That's where the coach has got to make sure that, he talks to both players and make sure that he understands exactly what the differences were or what the expectations were on the court. And I think Thibodeau has done that pretty well. He's managed these personalities, and I think they're a bunch of really good guys and guys that, I would love to be on a team with. That's the way I look at the Knicks. I don't necessarily know that they have what it takes to win a championship with the reasons that you pointed out yesterday. I agree with a lot of the things that you said about Karl Anthony Towns, but he's got to come back. And look, he has now been back-to-back conference championships. I told you that. Mm-hmm. And, and he was a big part of that in Minnesota. He was a big part of that here in New York. So maybe he's not a championship player at this point, but he is a player that can get his team right to the precipice of that championship. What they need is just like what Minnesota thought they needed when they acquired Rudy Gobert. They felt like they needed a big, strong defender. Now, the Knicks do have that in Mitchell Robinson, but I still think they're going to have another piece that's going to be a starting piece, because I do believe that Mitchell Robinson and Josh Hart, and if you want to keep Deuce McBride, those three guys have got to come off the bench. Maybe with one other player, and then you have a rotation of 9 players.
Yeah, that would be ideal if that's the way they end up after this offseason. And with people saying, this morning I heard C-Mac's take on it where he said, Karl Anthony Towns, it seems like everybody's blaming either Karl Anthony Towns or Tibbs. Well, we understand that the coach always gets too much blame because you can't fire all the players. You can fire a single coach. So that's not anything different. But not all players are created equal. Karl Anthony Towns came here to put them over the top to be a championship team. He's making $50 million a year, and it gets more and more for the next several years. So when you compare him to Mikal Bridges, who, you traded some picks for, but he's not making that type of money. He doesn't have that type of role on the team. You can't compare the two. Now, you want to tell me that Jalen Brunson wasn't as good in this Indiana series as he could have been? Okay, that's a fair criticism. But when you're comparing Karl Anthony Towns to Mikal Bridges or Josh Hart, OG's making a lot of money, and he was bad. He certainly received some criticism. But Towns, it's like the Juan Soto thing. Because you're making the most money, because you're supposed to be the superstar, because you're supposed to be the guy that takes a team from an NLCS team to a World Series team, if you're not performing, you're going to hear it more than the other guys. So that's why he's getting more criticism. It's not everybody has the same expectations. So I hope that this whole offseason and being here in New York and getting a taste of it lights a fire under his ass, and he comes out and he's more committed to defense and stops bitching and moaning about every little thing that's not going his way, and he takes that next step as a player. I'm not saying that it's impossible. I just think it's unlikely.
Yeah, I actually thought that he handled most of New York and all the stuff that was said about him, that the memes that are out there about him, I thought he handled it all really, really well, to be honest with you. Somebody who's been in the seat of fire, watching him play well for the most part. I like I told you, I would give him a B to a B plus. I wouldn't say he's an A plus. An A plus is an MVP player that takes his team to the championship. A B or B plus is a guy that gets him to where he got him to and was a big part of all of that. But again, his Game 6 performance left a lot to be desired. It was just he was all over the place. The ball wasn't going in for him. He was taking bad shots, trying to force the issue, I guess. And, and he even missed a couple passes that he could have made where he was trying to force himself to the basket. So, I mean, all of that stuff was there, and we all saw it. But I do think that he is I'm not going to say he's a loser. I'm going to say he's a winning player, but I'm going to say, yes, he tends to have these soft moments in these games where it just drives you crazy when you watch him, because you should get more out of him. When he's at his best, like I was saying, I don't know, maybe it was after Game 3, he scores the basketball in different ways that I can't imagine a guy that big is able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something we've been saying all year, and that's what makes his play when it's bad frustrating. And that was part of the thing I said yesterday is he's become the most frustrating player of any guy that I root for a team that I root for, because I know how great he can be. And it's just so inconsistent. And he could be the best player on the court in any single game that he plays, and you don't see enough of it. So, there's winning players, there's losing players, and there's championship players too. And there's certain guys that in those moments, it's their moment. We've seen a lot of that from Jalen Brunson. We have not seen a lot of that from Karl Anthony Towns.
Well, I also have to say on defense, and what frustrates me, and it frustrates me there's certain things that really do frustrate me when I watch my teams play. One of them is he doesn't like to put his hands up on defense, or he's just standing in the middle of the lane and just looking around and not getting involved. I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's just he's not sure what to do, not sure about the rotation, or he just doesn't put the effort in, whether it be the space that Stan Van Gundy kept talking about when there was a pick and roll. Mm-hmm. We saw that in the Boston series, by the way, until Game 6, that when they really locked it down and they wouldn't let that happen. But there are times in these games where, falling back 10 feet and giving Tyrese Halliburton or Miles Turner, a 10-foot cushion to take a three-point shot when you're the one that's supposed to be on them. That's the thing that Stan Van Gundy was talking about, and that's the thing that I'm talking about. That's the thing that frustrates me. The other thing that frustrates me is goddamn Edwin Diaz. Doesn't give a crap if anybody ever is on base. And I know that he's been great this year, and I know that it's. I just watched the highlights because obviously I didn't watch the game last night,
right.
and I'm like, guys steal bases on him all the time, and I'm getting sick of it.
Yeah,
and it's going to end up costing them somewhere, like in the playoffs, where he just comes in there and all he worries about is the batter in the batter's box, and he doesn't give a crap about the guys on the bases.
I think that they tell him that because he can get so distracted that it's almost like just do what you do, strike guys out, have your best stuff, don't get distracted by anything. But you're right. I mean, it can become a major problem. But I think he's being directed to do that. Honestly,
I think it's
because they know that he can be easily thrown off by anything. That's what I think it is.
It should be a part of his responsibility. I didn't mean to go there, but I just wanted to say a number of things that annoy me, and these are just two things that annoy me in two different sports.